everybody out there is staying safe, especially in the Northeast with this snow. And when it snows down here in the DMV, it feels like you would have thought it was the apocalypse. they cannot they cannot handle snow down in these parts, to say the least. I mean, that wasn't, we got a couple of inches, but man, you would have thought that we got 3 feet of snow. But hopefully this is not a sign of things to come for the winter in terms of various snowstorms coming about. We've been due. I mean, we did not get, especially in this area. They said, I believe they said this was the first real snowstorm we've had in like 3 years. So I hope that Mother Nature doesn't just say, you know what, it's time to make up for some lost time and start hitting us with these, barbarian, hitting us to bombard us with a bunch of snow, because God knows we cannot handle it down in these parts. Um, I am flying solo tonight. Hopefully we get Rob Sapp back next week. A lot to talk about with this in week which was in week 17 of the NFL season. It was an eventful week 17, to say the least. The playoff picture got a lot more clear, and we now are that much closer towards finding out who will be the 14 participants in the 2020-2021 season playoffs. But still, one more week to go. Still a few things to be decided. Before we get to all that, we're going to start out with our usual who won the week. And to me, Arizona, I thought about Arizona. They had a great win against Dallas and in Dallas. But, you know, there's no question to me for the second straight week that it was the Cincinnati Bengals led by Joe Burrow that won the week. They clinched the division. They do it and they do it in style with a just classic win over the Kansas City Chiefs. A game that had a lot. It was a fun game to watch. A very intriguing game, to say the least. To watch, they hold the Chiefs to 3 points in the second half. Um, all the talk is going to go towards Burrow and a lot of the attention. Rightfully so. Joe Burrow is no question a franchise quarterback, and no question is going to be a major player in this league for a lot of years to come. But I got to give the the Cincinnati defense the credit. Kansas City looked like they were about to put 50 on the board in the first quarter and a half. I mean, they were going up and down the field at will. Uh, Patrick Mahomes, like I said, he looked like seemingly he was headed for 400 yards plus passing. Instead, it's Joe Burrow who throws for over 400 yards in 2 weeks. 971 yards passing in 2 weeks, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions for the second straight week, and really a flat out outplay. He outplayed Patrick Mahomes. That's all there is to it. And give Cincinnati all the credit in the world. They were down by 14 points 3 different times over the course of this game, down by double digits 4 different times over the course of this game, and found a way to win the game, found a way to claw back, and really a coming of age victory for the Cincinnati Bengals, who have had some quality wins. I mean, we've seen them, against Baltimore twice. We've seen, now, against Kansas City. We know what they did to Pittsburgh, what they did to Pittsburgh this season, and just embarrassed them. And they are the AFC North champions, and they still have a chance at a number one seed. Though that's more likely not going to happen, considering what just transpired today. They said they're going to keep Burrow out, and Mixon tested positive for COVID. So they are fine with just being a top 4 seed in the playoffs. And of course, they will host a home game by virtue of the fact that they are a division champion. But again, Cincinnati Bengals, a team that can play with it on their best day, can play with anybody. Kansas City came in red hot. Kansas City came in playing as well as anybody in the NFL, winning 8 straight, and Cincinnati, Cincinnati bounced back in this game and really again showed some mental toughness because they got hit in the mouth. This was set up to be a heavyweight matchup. This was set up to be kind of like the young lion versus the old warrior versus young lion. And I know Patrick Mahomes is still young, but Kansas City has been dominant for like the last 3 or 4 years now. Cincinnati is trying to get to that level, and it was Cincinnati that comes out on top and does it. They did it with aggression. Did it with Zach. Zach Taylor is the coach is fearless. He went for it multiple times down there on fourth and goal. Down there as they were driving for the game-winning field goal. You see that, and a play that Joe Spagnuolo and Andy Reid, I'm sure will be having nightmares about up until probably maybe up until probably tomorrow or even Friday is I don't know what the coverage was on that 3rd and 27 against Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase had over 266 yards receiving, was just completely destroyed the Kansas City secondary, and you go man on man against that guy in that situation. It just made zero sense to me, none. Somebody else would have had to beat me. Like it had T. Higgins, Boyd, someone else would have had to beat me. I could not let Jamar Chase beat me on that particular play, on that 3rd and 27. I would have to make the tight end beat me, whoever. You can't let Jamar Chase beat you by going one on one, by covering him one on one. You don't have Deion Sanders. You don't have Darrell Reeves in his prime. You don't have Rob Woodson in his prime. Unless you had that type of cornerback, Champ Bailey, that level of cornerback, you can't cover this guy one on one. It's impossible. It's just not happening. Again, they have a lot of weapons, so it is kind of trouble. It is kind of difficult to double up Chase because Higgins can do damage. Boyd can do damage. They have weapons, and Burrow does not lock in on one receiver. That's the great thing about him. He sees the entire field, goes through his progressions, and makes the right read, the right play. But on that particular play, Jamar Chase can't be played one on one. It just can't happen. I'm not going to destroy Kansas City. They were due for a loss, 8 straight wins. It's hard, it's hard to have those types of long winning streaks in the NFL. So Kansas City is. I think Kansas City is still fine. Still think Kansas City would be one of the favorites to get to the Super Bowl. But this loss could hurt because it's a lot different for Kansas City. We know that the room for error for Kansas City a little bit smaller than it has been in past years, and we know that they've gotten to the Super Bowl with home field advantage. They've had home field advantage the last 3 years. Matter of fact, they lost the championship game a few years back against New England, and of course won back-to-back championship games, conference championship games to get to the Super Bowl in back-to-back years. So I think that if you're Kansas City, we'll see what happens. They will need some help in order to get that number one seed from Tennessee, who currently holds it. And of course, Tennessee has the tiebreaker over them in terms of the head-to-head because they beat Kansas City. And also, Kansas City does not have despite having a very good record at 11-5, does not have. They have not played well in conference. I believe their conference record is like 6-5. So they had those two things going against them as far as the playoffs and home field advantage. Home field advantage is important this year, especially with the number one seed. Um, you want that extra week of rest just from the wear and tear of 17 games in 18 weeks, COVID, all the various transitions these teams have had to go through with numerous players through injuries, COVID protocols. Um, And the bottom line is you would be the only team to enjoy that week off. So I think is more. I think more times. I think home field advantage is more important now than it ever has been for the number one seed. Despite the fact that the numbers tell us that teams have fared well on the road. I mean, team coming into this week, the number I saw that home teams were only 3 games over 500. total. Total. I think the record was 113 and 110. It's not a big difference from last year. And we thought last year would be an anomaly because no fans and everything no fans and COVID and things of that nature. But it really has not been a big difference between this year and last year as far as home field advantage. Home field advantage just is not what it once was throughout the course of the NFL season. But again, in the playoffs, you still want it. I mean, you still want somebody coming into your stadium. So Cincinnati wins the week. We know Burrow, and if you're Pittsburgh, if you're Baltimore, if you are Cincinnati, excuse me, if you're Cleveland, you're looking at Cincinnati, and you, without question, should be building your team in order to beat this particular team. But this particular team, Cincinnati's not going anywhere anytime soon, and they're only going to get better as their young players develop. They have a lot of young talent on that team, on both sides of the ball. So they're going to be around for a minute and a force to be reckoned with. Cardinals get back on track after a 3-game losing streak. Kyler Murray continues to dominate Jerry's world and stand undefeated in the state of Texas. Um, Very impressive win for the Cardinals. Like I said, they came, it wasn't for just the brilliance of Joe Burrow and that just great win over Kansas City, then Arizona would have been my team to win the week. They go on the road. All you hear about how hot Dallas was, and the Dallas defense, and this Dak's back, and Vance Joseph basically said, enough of that. This game was won by the Arizona defense. The Arizona defense it was a masterpiece of a performance from the Arizona defense in terms of keeping Dak off balance, really contain the Dallas running game. You can hold Dallas to 22 points. Dallas puts up 30 points a game, especially at home. And at home, they put up some just ridiculous numbers. They've been a much better offensive team at home versus on the road. Um, so Arizona goes out there and gets a much needed win. And again, I listen. I've told this to Robert Sapp, and I said this all year long. There's two things about Dallas that will always give me pause. Um, Number one, the game management. You saw it rear its ugly head in the fourth quarter, where Mike McCarthy somehow was baited into using a timeout when there was no way in the world that Cliff Kingsbury was going to go for two and not kick an extra point on a score. It just wasn't going to happen. Like it was no way in the world. And Cliff Kingsbury, I ain't gonna say even rolled the dice, but basically say, hey, well, maybe he will burn a timeout, which we all know second half timeouts in the NFL are like gold. I'd rather take a penalty than burn a timeout in the second half of an NFL game. And lo and behold, Mike McCarthy burns a timeout. They get the fumble late in the game that would have gave Dallas back the ball, being down by only 3, and it clearly was a fumble, but it was outside 2 minutes and they had no timeouts, so they could not challenge it. That's what I'm talking about. Separates a team with a lot of talent versus a team that is that versus a championship team that would not make that mistake. And Mike McCarthy's game management over the last, like his game management this year, his decision making, just situational football has just been it's been terrible. And the only reason Dallas has gotten away with it because number one, the division's horrible, and number two, they have a ton of talent. They have a ton of talent on the team, and they have been able, Dallas has one of the best point differentials in the league. So a lot of their wins have come easily. They've won some. They've won most of their wins have been easy wins, with the exception of maybe the exception of the Minnesota game when they didn't have Dak Prescott and the New England game on the road, which was a close game. Most of their wins have been double digits. They've won most of their games going away in terms of their wins. So, but when they get in these tight and close games, McCarthy just completely gets exposed. And today, this game was no different. Again, Kyler Murray thought played well, completely clearly outplayed Dak Prescott. I thought they did an excellent job with the design runs. Dallas seemingly had no answer for that. Again, you can put up numbers. Again, you can score against that defense. Arizona did an excellent job at negating the Dallas pass rush by just running the ball, not so much running the ball for yardage, but just running it to keep them honest. And also, again, the design runs with Kyler Murray really kept Dallas off balance all throughout the course of the game. Again, that is not a lockdown defense. You can make some plays on that defense. They put Arizona probably left some points on the board. They easily could have put 30 up, put 25 points on the board without DeAndre Hopkins, who is as valuable of a receiver as there is in the league. Okay, to his team and what he means to that offense. So great win for Arizona. They're not going to be a number one seed, but they still have a chance at a number two seed. I still have an outside chance at a number two seed. More than likely, they're probably. I don't think they and I gotta look at the standings. I don't. As a matter of fact, they might not have. I don't think they have a chance at number two seed. They probably locked into that four that four seed. So I don't think that you will see Arizona play a lot of its players come this game. I think that they'll kind of take it. Kyler Murray has some injury issues. Certainly, DeAndre Hopkins is not playing. They probably want to get him healthy. As I look at the standings right now to see where they're at. Um, they are fifth, and they're still behind Dallas because of conference record. Um, they more than likely will not catch the Rams. The Rams, well, Arizona, they still have a chance in the division. They still have a chance, so they still have an outside chance because they're only one game behind the Rams, and they finish 4-2. They will. I wonder what will be the tiebreaker. They will have the tiebreaker. Matter of fact, yeah, they play Seattle. Um, Still have an outside chance. They still can get to a four seed, um, but really slim pick. They're gonna have a hard time cracking that that two or three. Of course, Green Bay has clinched home field for in the NFC, so that's out. But I'm looking at it now for Arizona. Arizona probably is going to, at best, will be a four seed at best, and they will know come Sunday whether or not Dallas. If Dallas wins, then Arizona is going to be more than likely locked into that fifth seed. Um, I don't expect to see if Dallas beats Philadelphia on Saturday night. So Arizona will already know whether or not they really want to go play a lot of their players and start resting people. Um, Again, they have the Rams have a better record, conference record than the Arizona has, but Arizona has a better division record. But if the Rams lose and the Rams lose, I wonder what would be the tiebreaker. Um, so they still no, they still have not they. Cause I'm looking at strength of schedule, their strength of schedule. So it depends on who the Rams playing. I want to say strength of schedule would be the last one. The Rams play the 49ers. Based on the fact that I would have to get, and this is me completely guessing right now. This is what happens when you start looking into these playoff scenarios. You get thrown off because of how many different scenarios there are. I'm just gonna say this: I don't think that they will play Kyler Murray if the Cowboys, especially if the Cowboys win. I don't think they'll play Kyler Murray um, come come Sunday. I need to look at the playoffs. I do now. Now I want to look at the playoff scenarios. So maybe I'll check and look at that later on in the in the podcast. Pittsburgh stays alive, but it keeps their faint playoff hopes alive uh, with a victory over the fading Cleveland Browns, who are going to have a very interesting, to say the least, um, off season. This was a game where was dominated by the Pittsburgh defense, 9 sacks. T.J. Watt nearly broke Michael Strahan's record in this game with 4 sacks on his own. Right now, he stands at 21 and a half, just 1 sack shy of tying the record held by Michael Strahan. And again, Cleveland is just is a absolute dumpster fire at this point. Um, Now, listen, you cannot. I'll say this: Baker Mayfield, and again, we've known this basically for the majority of the season that Baker Mayfield will not be on the team next year. Again, this just it's not going to happen. I expect them to have a new quarterback. They're going to go after a veteran quarterback. They will be in the Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson sweepstakes. That team is too talented up and down the board. They are not going to waste another year with Baker Mayfield. But Baker Mayfield is just part of the problem. Um, and it was called out like routinely over the course of the broadcast in terms of they refuse to take advantage of one of the greatest strengths in professional football that they have, and that's their running game with their offensive line. Their offensive line is one of the best in the league. They can run the ball on anybody. Anybody they can run the ball on when they put their minds to it. That game was basically, for the most part, a one possession game for the better part of the game. And they, for whatever reason, want to, put the ball in Baker Mayfield's hands as if he is, Joe Burrow or as if he's Justin Herbert. Like, first of all, clearly Mayfield is hurt right now. He's going to have surgery as soon as, he's going to have surgery. He's not playing this week. The labrum in his shoulder, clearly has affected his play. Not to make excuses, but it is what it is. So that's reason enough to put more emphasis on the running game, on their rushing attack, than anything. And Baker has just not had a good year this year, and that goes without saying. So again, I don't understand what um, I really don't understand what they're trying to do. Um, I don't get I just don't get their logic. I don't. Yeah, I don't get I don't get what they're trying to do offensively when it should be clear that they should be running football. Like seriously, like just run the football. Now again, I know Kareem Hunt was out, but Chubb is still one of the best running backs in the league. Period. So Cleveland, they're gonna listen. I think Stefanski's gonna keep his job. They made the playoffs last year, won a playoff game. And I'm not saying he should be fired, but they will have another quarterback, and you will probably see some changes with the offensive in terms of with the offensive coordinator and things of that nature. You'll see some of those usual changes, some of those changes that come with a team. But that team does that team badly underachieved this year. There's no way that team should not be in the playoffs. No, that team is one of the most talented teams in the league, easily one of the 5 most talented teams in the league. There's no way that team not be in the playoffs, let alone have a losing record. Pittsburgh stays alive. Pittsburgh, of course, needs a lot of help, to say the least. First of all, you need Jacksonville to beat Indianapolis, um, and they also and they need the would need the Vegas and the Vegas game not to end in a tie. The Vegas Los Angeles Charger game not to end in a tie. They would need As I look here, I'm looking at the standings now. They would need Vegas in the Raiders not to end in a tie. Um, to end in a tie. No, I'm sorry. They need. They actually would need that game to end in a tie. Look at that. So Pittsburgh 9-7-1. Yeah. So it's very the scenario is not going to happen like that. I don't see Jacksonville. Um, don't see Jacksonville. Don't see that happening at all. Don't see Jacksonville um, beating Indianapolis, even though they played them tough over the course of the last couple years. I just can't see it happening. Um, Pittsburgh again. Pittsburgh probably wasn't a playoff team this year anyway. I mean, Pittsburgh was not just Pittsburgh wasn't a playoff. They are very fortunate to be in that position to where they still have a shot. But crazier things have happened. We'll see what transpires. But uh, more than likely, the Vegas Charger game will be the decide the final playoff spot. The Saints in the AFC still have an outside chance to make the playoffs, though again it's highly unlikely. They still have an outside. The Saints still have an outside chance to make the playoffs. They would need. Well, actually, I mean, they would need to win, and San Francisco needs to have San Francisco lose. So it's not. No, they just need to win and have San Francisco lose, which is not out of the realms of possibility. Out of the realms of possibility. And of course, the reason why San Francisco is in that position as a six seed and possibly out the playoffs is because the Eagles took out the Saints earlier this season. The Eagles had that tiebreak from that standpoint. Um, that the Saints could not finish ahead of the Eagles versus finishing ahead of San Francisco. So listen, I'm not going to go through all these playoff scenarios. That I'll be here till you know 2023, going through all the playoff scenarios. But most of it has been decided. We'll look at the standings a little bit later on in the podcast. Real or not, Jalen Hurts, a franchise quarterback, Hurts this year um, threw for over 3,000 yards, 10 rushing touchdowns, which is a rare feat. Played very well down the stretch, though against bad teams. I think not enough is being talked about the Eagle defense. The Eagle defense is legit top 10 defense. That defense played great down the stretch on both sides, on stopping the run and the pass. So not enough is being talked about. Listen, I like her. I think Hurts has shown to me that he can be a starting NFL quarterback. I haven't seen enough to stay franchise. So I think Hurts has bought the Eagles some time to possibly seek out their franchise quarterback if they so choose to go in that direction. If Hurts doesn't improve, he stays at this level. I'm still not going to. He's giving them some time to build up the rest of their roster. Put it to you this way, so maybe he's giving them an extra year or two before he gets paid or demands bigger money to where you can start adding some pieces in terms of the receiving core. You can start rebuilding that offensive line, a little, tweaking that offensive line, and add some players in key areas that are of need before you have to pay your quarterback franchise money. Because at some point in a couple of years, when it's kind of, when that fourth year comes around, it's going to be you're going to he's either your guy or he's not your guy. Biggest disappointments. There were two disappointments that just stood out, and it really that like if I could have reached and got and there have been some more disappointments, but these two kind of these two sold themselves, a coach and a player. We'll begin with Antonio Brown. So Antonio Brown, everybody saw what happened with Antonio Brown. We don't have to rehash that. It's 3 days later. Here's the thing. I heard a lot of angles being taken. I've heard people defending Antonio Brown, basically saying, "Hey, if my employer fired me, I would leave immediately." Immediately, basically assuming that Arians told him to leave the field if he was not going to, if he's not going to refuse to get back in the game. Of course, there's speculation where, in terms of how injured his ankle was. I think that's a bunch of bullshit because number one, he was playing, he looked fine in the game when he was playing. Two, he ran off the field, hopping and running and doing through the peace sign of the crowd. His ankle looked fine. So I think the ankle is just a way to try to is a way for his agent to kind of like take some of the heat off him and to try to paint him as this victim, which is damn near impossible. I don't want to hear about mental health with with Antonio Brown. I really we can't start weaponizing mental health when someone decides to show their ass. It could just be very simply that he's just a bad guy, and there's a track record and a litany of incidents that prove so. Like that, I mean, look at this man's track record. He is a professional football player. If you are a professional at anything, I don't care if you play football. I don't care if you work for, if you're a custodian. That means you are a functioning human being. If you're a functioning human being, you know the difference between right and wrong. Okay, you know the difference between right and wrong, and you can't do shit, wild shit, and then people call for you. Oh, it must be CTE, or it must be mental, or it must be something going on with their mental health. Yes, there are a lot of cases over the course around this country, around the world, where people are struggling with their mental health. No two ways about it. Uh, especially the last 2 years being in this pandemic. Okay, I don't doubt that for a second. I take mental health very seriously. I take peace of mind very seriously. But when you're an asshole, you're an asshole. Like I don't. Like, this is all there is to it. Like it's just no. Like if somebody does something to you, if someone does something to you, you're not going to let them use the excuse of mental health as a means to why they made that decision. So yeah, we can hold people accountable and still say, hey, all of he may not be in his right mind per se, or but still, he's still a professional. He's still a professional. That's the key word here, professional. He's still a functioning human being. Okay, I'm sure Antonio Brown could drive a car. Still, I see Antonio Brown. Antonio, if you can play football, then I like again. We got to get away with this making excuses. And again, a lot of you on here want to have just become doctors all of a sudden and therapists. He got CTE. Really? How do you know? How do you know he got CTE? Now, another thing that I've heard a lot of from the Tampa Bay side, man, we care about Antonio. We really care about him. We want him to get the best. We want him to get all the help that he needs. Support him. Blah 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 blah. And the two leading, the two main leaders of the We Love Antonio campaign are, of course, Tom Brady and Bruce Arians, who who couldn't be more full of shit. You couldn't be more full of shit than those two guys. Because here's the bottom line: you used Antonio Brown to win a Super Bowl. Period. If you really care about Antonio Brown in a real intentional way, then you pull Antonio Brown aside and say, "Hey, man, look, we really need you. We're not even going to sign you. Um, but we will do everything we have in our power to try to help you. Whatever you need, therapy, would it recommend doctor recommend whatever you what do you need besides playing football? We're not going to sign you because we feel as though playing football will not benefit you in terms of some of the stuff that you're dealing with off the field. That conversation will never happen in a gazillion years. Because the bottom line is they used Antonio Brown as a means to win a championship. Period. Robert Sapp made the point way back when Josh Gordon signed with Kansas City, and I tried to make the case that yeah, this is good for Josh Gordon. He's in an organization that's structured, and so on and so on. And Sapp immediately was like, no, this is no. He shouldn't be playing football. If you really want to, and I thought about that with Antonio Brown. Like, if you really want to help out either one of these guys who have had trouble with substance abuse, and Josh Gordon and Antonio Brown that's just had trouble just with the law and trouble, with all types of shit on and off the field, then they wouldn't be playing football. Then they wouldn't be playing football because clearly playing football has not cured their ability to make quality life decisions. Even catching a touchdown pass in the Super Bowl, which Antonio Brown did last year, okay, February 2021, he caught a touchdown pass in the Super Bowl, and they won the Super Bowl. That still hasn't changed anything in terms of how he behaves, in terms of his mindset, his mentality. Still walks around entitled. Still walks around as like the world owes him a favor. Still doesn't give a shit about anybody but Antonio Brown. That has not changed. Antonio Brown, it hasn't humbled him. I mean, you look at the press conference a couple of weeks ago when they were talking about, are you grateful for the opportunity? Bruce Arians basically sticking, his neck out for you to give you another opportunity, despite the fact that he said that was your last chance. And Antonio Brown basically would have had an opportunity to basically say thank you to Bruce Arians, and didn't and brushed it off. Try to turn it into a him against the world. You guys try to create drama. You guys like drama, and so on and so on. So listen, Antonio Brown is who he is. I don't know what Antonio Brown's mental health status is. I'm not a therapist. I'm not even going to begin to try to diagnose Antonio Brown. What I do know is he's a guy. He is a 30-year-old, 31-year-old, whatever. I think he's 31, 32-year-old man who has made a lot of bad decisions over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, and who, frankly, I wouldn't want anywhere near my football team. To be honest with you, but he someone else will give Antonio Brown a chance, a shot. Period. I've heard, and that's another thing I heard. Well, his career is over. No, it's not. This is a guy who. Think about this. What's worse, a fake backs card or running off the field without your shirt? Remember, this guy he committed a federal crime. I don't believe people people realize how serious a fake backs card is. Like, that's a federal offense. That case is still ongoing. I mean, he has cases that are still ongoing that he could be charged for. Again, the NFL does not give a shit. Outside of murder, you can do whatever you want as long as you have talent and can play at a relatively high level, help a team win. You will have a job. Period. If we didn't see Ray Rice knock his girlfriend out cold on video, Ray Rice would still have a job. Not today, because that's been years ago. But Ray Rice would have still had been on someone else's team. uh, uh, years after that. A couple of years, at least his career lasts at least 2 or 3 more years. He would have got another chance, I should say. At that point, he was, starting the wear and tear was starting to catch up as a running back. But he would have got another chance if we didn't see that video evidence of him knocking his girlfriend out, or I think his wife, even not his wife, maybe his wife. I think she ended up getting married. So I don't see like I could definitely see a scenario. Remember, keep this in mind. Tampa Bay has yet to cut him. Now he's not going to play for Tampa Bay again. They have yet to cut him because they fear that another team will pick him up, whether it be Green Bay, Kansas City, or another contending team will pick him up. So they know how the NFL works. But again, I don't want to hear this shit about mental health or about we care about Antonio Brown. Please, give me a break with that. Joe Judge, one of the more bizarre pleas for I really should be the coach of this team that I've seen in recent memory, where you basically go into a post game press conference and basically tell blatant lies or say stuff that could not be proven or measured by wins and losses. We have a culture, a foundation that's developing. We have guys, we have other players from other teams that left here who are basically begging to play for us that took more money to go elsewhere. So you're telling me that they took more money and they want to come back and play for you when your team is 4-12, right? And you have 9 double-digit losses, including 6 in a row. Okay. Again, if delusion had a face, it would be Joe Judge because that I if I was the owner, I would have fired him on the spot. I would just got rid of him on the spot because there's no way that this guy could lead my football team with this level of delusion. It's not like I can't. Like you clearly you think we're good. You think we're a good team. You think you're good. You think you're doing a good job. So and again, throwing Pat Shermer under the bus, around the bus, through the bus. Um, it was something to see. And of course, New York, rightfully so, had a field day. Uh, the back pages had a field day. The media, radio, podcast had a field day with Joe Judge. He listen. He provided content. They haven't provided any wins or any first downs or negative 10 yards passing in the game, which is almost impossible in 2021 in 2022 in the NFL. Impossible to be negative yardage in in an NFL football game. So, if you think your coaching situation is bad, look no further than Joe Judge in New York. And I want to say this: those days of the rah rah coach in professional sports, those days are in professional sports. Maybe you can get away with that if you are, Nick Saban or somebody of that stature at the college level. But in professional sports, the rah rah coach is dead. That day is done. It's done. You can't like it's just you're not Dan Campbell, that Stan Van Gundy, those guys are dinosaurs in terms of their approach to coaching and trying to manage egos and manage these personalities and it's about relationships. It's about connecting. It's about can you emotionally connect to another human to 53 guys? What is your emotional connection like? And then we can start talking about X's and O's. But again, I mean, these two stood out. Like there's no two ways about it. These were two of the biggest disappointments of the entire season, along with the Raiders, celebrating, you know, at Kansas City's circle or on their logo before the game. That probably will be pops probably the biggest disappointment of the year. That's gonna be up there. All right, so here's where we stand with the playoffs. Green Bay, of course, all the teams that I have in boldface in dark letters have clinched. So yeah, one spot open in the NFC, 2 spots still alive in the AFC. Um, Green Bay has clinched the #1 seed. Lot Aaron Rodgers wants to pad his stats for the MVP. For the MVP, that's the only reason that you even dream playing him in this Detroit game. I would not play him in this Detroit game, but it sounds like he's going to play at least a half in this Detroit game. Again, he wants to pad his MVP stats. Or he wants to go over 4,000 yards and as close to 40 touchdowns as possible. Against Detroit, you might could get 5 touchdowns and a half. Who knows? Um, Tampa Bay and you have Tampa Bay and the Rams for the number 2 seed. Again, I think you're going to see a lot of these teams rest. I think you can see Tampa resting some players. You're going to see Arizona, Dallas quite possibly resting some players. Um, Home field advantage minus the bye week really does not mean that much, to be honest with you. Um, Again, I know Tampa has been great at home. But Tampa Bay, they're built to win anywhere. They can win anywhere. You have Tom Brady. You have a defense that can a physical defense. You have championship pedigree. They can win anywhere. Arizona needs to get healthy. Um, Dallas is getting healthy, but who knows? Again, they who knows how hard they want to play, how hard they will go and try to play that game. And try to play that game. And again, Arizona, I wouldn't be surprised if Kyler Murray if they sat Kyler Murray. But again, you have San Francisco. San Francisco's win. If they win, they're in. It's just that if they lose and New Orleans wins, then you have the Saints. And then the Saints will be the the number 7 seed. The number 7 seed. Um, AFC, you have a number. So you have 4 teams that are still alive for the number 1 seed. Tennessee, Kansas City, um, Tennessee, Kansas City, Cincinnati, and New England. Buffalo cannot get the number 1 seed because, of course, they lost to Tennessee, and they cannot. Even if Tennessee lost, they would still finish ahead of Buffalo. So Buffalo is eliminated from the number 1 seed, but they still are in the mix to move up. Be very again. Kansas City is still in the. You still have, of course, Indianapolis. Um, if they win and they're in, and Pittsburgh, of course, has faint hopes. Baltimore basically has no. Well, Baltimore I don't know why. Baltimore has basically next to no chance to get in, and of course Vegas and the Chargers are playing basically a win or go home type game unless unless it's a tie. So basically the Vegas Charger game will be basically a win or go home game. Very surprised, shocked if Indianapolis does not handle business versus Jacksonville. Of course, doubleheader, week 18. We've been pumping it up for like the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. The biggest season ever. You have a prime time. You have a doubleheader, Dallas, Philadelphia at 8 at the night game. Kansas City, Denver will be the day game on ESPN. And then, of course, San Francisco, the Rams. Rams have lost to San Francisco 5 straight times. Rams trying to maintain that number 2 seed. San Francisco just trying to get into the playoffs, and of course the Chargers and Vegas on Sunday Night Football. Real thoughts, couple non-football thoughts, well, non-NFL thoughts before I let you go. Of course, national championship is coming up Monday, Alabama, Georgia. I expect this game will be closer. I'm not going to make the same mistake and bet against Alabama. It's just not. I'm just not going to do it. Again, I think this would be. I think the first game was an aberration as far as I don't think Alabama will manhandle Georgia again like that. But I do think that Georgia just doesn't have a matchup for the speed Alabama has with those receivers. I just don't think the Georgia strength is with their front seven. It's not with the back seven with their secondary. They lost a lot of secondary players to the NFL between transfers and NFL. They lost a ton of talent on that secondary. I think two of their players even got drafted. Um, Stokes, of course, for the Green Bay is a first round pick. Yeah, he was a first round pick and has played great this year for Green Bay. And Bama's Bama. I mean, Saban in these games is, you know, I mean, like, national championship games that Saban lost. You know, he's what 7-2. They lost to Clemson and I believe they've only lost once under Saban in the national championship. And that was Clemson in uh, no, they lost twice to Clemson. Yeah, Clemson's beaten them twice. My bad. Because Lawrence beat them, got them once, and Deshaun Watson got them once. So Saban in his career is 7-2 in these national championship games, 6-2 at Alabama. Um, and I think after Monday night it'll be championship number 8, championship number 7 at Alabama. John Morant has frankly just taken the next step and is headed towards, superstar status. Pop, not this year, but he has that potential. He's going to be an All Star this year. Has a chance to be All NBA, at least second team. Um, and you look at how fearless this guy is. Look at how much his teammates love to play with him. He's improved his jump shot. Great energy, night in, night out, and with that, still plays relatively under control for someone who is probably the most. I think he's replaced Westbrook as the most athletic point guard in the league. I don't think that's actually a debate right now. Westbrook, struggling to finish at the rim. But and he and John Morant just destroyed the Lakers last week. Had a stretch of 4 straight 30-point games. Had his way with Brooklyn. And again, Memphis has a lot going. They have a lot going on for themselves, considering they have a number of pieces that they could possibly, if they want to, in a trade deadline, make a move. A lot of young pieces, a lot of young talent. They're gonna be around for a while. Like they've really actually developed guys. Their younger players have actually developed um, to the point to where they cannot just be dismissed as a bottom half, as a bottom feeder in the Western Conference, or as a playoff team. Also as a playoff team, or that's one and done. So just a couple of thoughts. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Real Deal Podcast. Enjoy the rest of your week. I will have this podcast up later on this evening, so be on the lookout for that. So long.